Hello, this is Larry Martin, a solutions consultant with Beyond 20. Today we're going to talk about how you can review who's been logging into your Cherwell system, as well as what kind of changes they've been making in the system and what blueprints have been published. Now, in today's world with heightened security and trying to ensure that we know who did what when in our IT environment, it's very important to know where to go to check for these things. We're also going to point something out in this development system that I have here that you need to consider in your own organization. So let's begin with looking at our audit log for people who have logged into the system and what they were doing in there. It's not extremely detailed, but it is good information to have. So we'll go into our CSM administrator, then we go to our security, and right down here we have what is called the audit log. When we open this up, you can see that we have the login ID, the username, what application they were in, their login date, their logout date, logged in as true or false, and failed login attempts. So the thing that I was going to point out is if you notice the username is Cherwell admin. We've got one instance of me logging in as Beyond Larry here, but everything else is showing CSD admin, Cherwell admin. That's not a good security practice. We want to make sure that each of your technicians and users in the environment do have their own logins and that we're not sharing logins so that you can truly track the security of your environment and know who made what changes when. You can also validate that, if you do only have one Cherwell admin and you are for some reason still using CSD admin, you can see how long it was logged in with your delta here. You can see that I had a 1 minute login basically, and then here 3 minutes for various things that I've done throughout the system. But it does give you the date and time, and it shows whether they're logged in currently or not. Failed logins, if this number gets too high, then that's someone trying to log in who either has forgotten or doesn't know the password. Cherwell administrator, the service management, or blue pill if you still refer to it that way. Automation process server, changes made there. So up here you have your view, and you can focus in on failed attempts and basically filters the log. Particular applications, and then you can choose which of the applications you want to look at. Not all of them have data, but you can still come in here and look through those. And then a particular login ID, you can come in here and type in the name of one of the login IDs, not the username, to focus on how often that particular user's been into your system. A particular user, now we can go and pick from our user info table. Same results as a particular ID, but here we can actually choose the people. Still logged in, those who are currently logged into the system did not get cleared out for whatever reason. And successful attempts, when there were no failed logins for that user during that instance. So this will help you, again, check and see who's logging into your administrator client, what they're doing in there. Well, it doesn't really show you what they're doing in there, but it will show you who logged in, how long they were logged in, and you have some options for filtering to help you with that. You can come down to configure and you can say, I don't really want to track logouts or logged in or fails. You really should, but those options are there. The other thing that we were going to talk about was what changes have they made in the system. And while we can't see every change that was made, one of the things that we can do is use our Blueprints publish log. So let's go into Blueprints and view our publish log. And here we can start looking at what all has been done with the publishing of Blueprints and what was touched. Not necessarily going to get all the detail you might would want, but you can see what definitions were touched. So for example, I did some widget work back in June, and you can see that that was done here. Customer satisfaction versus incidents widget, updating the definition of the date filter, 30-day default, overall survey average, CD executive customer set, etc. And that was started at 6:23, 3:55, and finished at the same time, which would be what you would expect since it was a publishing event. And you can see where the blueprint was invoked from, and that is the proper location and its blueprint name. You can look at it by only definition changes, by a particular user. Once again, we can choose that user. Let's see if the Beyond Larry, he's not in here, so he didn't make a blueprint. And by view, and we can look at the default view, portal secondary. So you can see where we've updated all these different objects in a blueprint at some point. Now again, back to the all records. Can't really drill into them, but we can see things like adding a field warranty expiration quarter. I had done that. I have a YouTube video in our channel here back in July, earlier last week, where we were doing that work, and you can see where I've added that field here. I updated the definition of the computer, and I was modifying the form, which is when I added this field to that form. So it takes a little time to learn how to use this well, but you can definitely see what's going on, what's been touched. Now one other bit to go with all of this is actually looking at the details of your blueprints. Here we can look at the details of the last blueprint published. It's just telling us that it was completed on Wednesday, July 20th. So I haven't done anything to this database for 8 days. But here we will open a blueprint, and we can look at what's happened by coming up to File, Blueprint Changes. Now this is going to give us a view where we can actually see different things that have happened in that blueprint. So if you remember, over on the publish log, we saw where the blueprint was coming from. We saw the path that blueprint was stored in. So you could actually go open that blueprint, then open it in here without publishing it, and just see what all has been changed. So for example, stored expressions, global, I added a required field borders expression. And all that was a simple expression to set required on save fields to red if they didn't have a value. I also made a modification to the incident notify owner of reopen. I added that automation process, touched incident in this process, and then it also managed to make some updates to these folders. And then on the forms, I made a modification to the resolution details form and modified a blueprint one step by adding an incident reopen email and setting a set pending one step, and made some modifications in there. So as you can see, there's quite a bit of information you can gain. It allows you to see who's doing what and help ensure your system stays stable. It also can come in useful whenever you have an unknown error in your environment and you want to try to track that down. Coming in here to these logs and audits will give you a head start in figuring out exactly what went on with your system before you even have to invoke anything with SQL or the server logs or anything of that nature. I hope you found this information useful. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and I will see you next week in our next video. Thank you.